It's Bruins Benders post-game live, and it's brought to you on the Inside the Rink YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe right now, as a matter of fact, and follow us on all the social medias at Bruins Benders. It's Matty and Connor Green again tonight, and the Bruins, tell you what a difference a night makes as the Bruins get a 4-0 win at home, the sixth home win in a row. And they finally solved the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had beaten them by 4 goals each of the first 2 times they played each other. Bruins return the favor tonight with a more of a complete effort, more of the similar effort than they had to beat the Washington Capitals before the break. Jeremy Swayman gets a second shutout of the season, earning his 8.25, and Connor is all sorts of happy about it. And the Bruins are back in the win column.
Absolutely. And you know, for Swayman, it's good to see him finally get a really positive game under his belt. You know, the 8.25 million is kind of a gag when he's getting lit up every game, but a 4-0 win for Boston is great for us, great for Swayman, probably in the confidence department, but at the same token, it is the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Right. It is, and the Jackets are not very good at home. I think they're 4-12-3 now on the road. On the road, at home they're very good. On the road, not good. Complete 180 for this team, and they lose tonight 4-0. Some key points tonight. Justin Brazeau, as T-Boz has commented several hours ago here, it has scored again. He has 8 goals now in the season. He's 7 goals away from T-Boz getting a Sorry John t-shirt from yours truly. Mason Lohrei on the ice for all 4 goals tonight, a +4, the only +4 tonight. Fabian Lysell gets a chance tonight, 11.5 minutes. No shots on net, but he was a +1. He was on the ice for 1 goal. And, you know, he was able to get called up today. Beecher was out. Wahlstrom was out as healthy scratches, and Lysell draws in. And, you know, I thought he did okay. I thought there was a couple of nice passes he made, a couple of, you know, decent decisions he made. And I think he did okay, and hopefully he gets another shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, as ordered, you know, my only gripe in this department, and it's kind of hard to make this gripe when Geeky gets a goal and assist tonight, but I would rather have seen Lysell play in Geeky's spot on the top few lines there instead of playing on the third line with kind of crap.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this before about those types of players like Lysell and Merkulov and Patra even. You know, it's hard to put them down on a third and fourth line with guys who just don't score all that much and don't create much offense, and then expect them to play to their strengths and do what they're advertised to do. So that's my problem with it is if you're going to bring them up, give them a solid chance, even on the second line. Like put them where Coyle was and move Coyle down or whatever, but have him on a top 6 situation so you could see exactly what he could do with good offensive players. And that's part of the problem. I thought tonight, you know, obviously, I thought he played fairly well. I mean, he did what he needed to do. And I think part of the problem with him is obviously the defensive thing. He's gotten much better as we've heard the last year or so defensively and more responsible. And as a young player, that's what he needs to do. And the Bruins, you know, expect their young players to play perfectly. So it's a really tough situation for a guy like Lysell, but at least they're giving him a crack at it right now, which I thought honestly was interesting because, you know, they're 12-5-1 with Sacco. They played terrible last night, but largely they played okay. In fact, pretty good at times and haven't really changed much of the lines here and there. And to put him in there tonight, I thought was an interesting move.
Yeah, I think it's kind of foreshadowing where Sweeney's at with the roster here. He made the move by picking up Oliver Wahlstrom on waivers. You know, we kind of applauded him for that, going out of the normal depths of Sweeney's pockets and making that move, but it didn't work. The offense was still kind of stale and you're looking for more. And I think this is yet another one of his tricks up his sleeves that he can do without having to dip into the trade market or having to waive, any of his own players that have decent value. So will it work in the long run? I don't know. He had no points tonight and was just a +1. Playing on the third line with Brazeau and Frederick, I don't think is going to help him, pot plenty of points. So the experiment's going to go one way or the other. Will they continue to let him meander through and be a third liner, or the expectation's going to override what's actually happening?
Yeah, I mean, again, you put him on a line with Frederick and Brazeau. It's sort of to say it's interesting is saying something. It's a weird line combination. Guys with all different sorts of skill sets. Trent Frederick hasn't done a damn thing in 6 weeks, probably. Brazeau gets the goal tonight, the type of goal he needs to get. God, I'll tell you, I've been on Brazeau, and I don't think he's much of anything. He's fine, I guess, but I'm not a big Brazeau guy, and everybody knows that. But I will say this: God, he's a big, heavy body that you just can't move from in front of the net, and he's willing to go there. So on the third line, I can live with that. I guess I can live with that. And tonight he had the type of greasy goal in front of the goaltender where you can't move him. He has decent hands and a decent nose for the puck around there. If they can continue to get pucks toward the net when he's on the ice and he's there, then you're going to see some of those goals from him. And I thought tonight was a perfect sort of example to that. The other two, Geekie and Koepke, absolute snipes from both of them. And Geekie has an elite shot. There's no question about it. When he shoots the puck, Brad Marchand even said it. If he had a shot like Geekie, he would shoot it all the time. And Geekie has one of the better shots on the team. And he's showing it now. He has 7 goals now on the season. He's been hot as a pistol the last, 3-4 weeks, whatever it is. Ever since he went to that top line and people were ripping the team for putting him there.
It's crazy what happens when you play with good talent.
Right. He's actually done an admirable job there. And as long as he shoots the puck, and gets it on net, and he's going to create some opportunity. And then Pastrnak with a great finish on the breakaway. So there's your 4 goals. And it was the type of game that the Bruins, again, need to play. Like, they have to stick to details. They have to play good defensively. They have to get good goaltending. They can't cough the puck up left and right. And if they do that, then they're going to be in all sorts of games, and they're going to win some tough, low-scoring, 1-goal games. Tonight, they're able to get 4 goals, and this is the type of game they need to play to win. And they're starting to play better at home, which I think is a good sign. Like, for a long time there, they were kind of inconsistent at home, and it's always been a place they've been pretty good at. And I think playing better at home is definitely a good sign under Sacco.
Yeah, and it's kind of a positive thing to be able to know that you have one place that you can play 50% of your games, and you're going to play well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's one of those things where it's kind of a cliche that you should have a home ice advantage and you should play better at home. Mm-hmm. But if you can't win games at home, you're fucked.
No, that's 100% true. If you can't win games at home, you're fucked. That's a great quote from Connor Green himself. Tonight, Mark Kastelik, Kastelik didn't have a great game tonight, I didn't think. He had a bad penalty. He coughed the puck up with just a horrific turnover. And I think Swayman actually made the save on it, or they missed the net on it. I think it might have been Marchenko walking in because Kastelik, just inside his own blue line, decided to try to throw it through. I think it was Marchenko, tried to throw it through him, and he stole the puck and walked right in. He hasn't been great the last few games. I don't know if that's just hitting a wall. He is a 4th liner. I mean, again, after a while, you kind of are what you are. And I think the Koepke scored tonight, and he had 3 or 4 weeks there where he wasn't doing all that much. And Beecher, he wins faceoffs, but other than that, he doesn't play much, and he was scratched tonight. So that 4th line is kind of settled back into just being a random 4th line. And it'll be interesting to see what they
Surprise,
do.
surprise.
I mean, it happens, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. If they go get a guy like they typically do before the trade deadline to solidify, the fourth line and try to get maybe a veteran, maybe a little more grit there. I'm not sure, but they may get another
I
piece
will
there.
poke my fucking eyeballs out. I will poke them all the way out. Just
Okay.
continuously. If we get a third or a fourth line plug and a seventh or eighth defenseman at the trade deadline, I will be ripping my hair out.
Well, I'll tell you what, be prepared to be eyeballless because that's what typically happens. I mean, you've been a fan of this team for a bit. Like, that's what happens. They're going to get a depth defenseman and they're going to get a guy who's a bottom six guy. That's what they're going to do. So prepare yourself because there's not a lot of money to do the other thing. And I just don't know if they'll trade anybody off the roster. I really hope they trade Trent Frederick. I don't know why they're waiting so long, but he's not turning it around. Like, it's just, he's still kind of nothing out there.
There was somebody, I had sent you guys a tweet before the game. The person on Twitter is Greg Nog 4073, and it showed a picture of Trent Frederick's last 10 games and said, bro is public skating. And he has 0 points and is a -6 in his last 10 games before tonight. And I don't think it got much better for him. So,
yikes. Yeah, that's not very good at all. Scare tonight for Charlie McAvoy. Took a hit up high. Nikita Zadorov, in what he should be doing, stands up for his teammate, gets into the fight. McAvoy did return, but that was a little bit scary seeing him down so long because usually if he gets dinged up, he kind of hops right back up. And he's been extremely durable. I mean, he's built like a fire hydrant. Like, that's the one good thing about McAvoy is that he's very durable. He takes a beating. He plays hurt. He does all those things. And tonight he was able to come back. So that was a good sign to see McAvoy back because they can't miss him. I mean, they can't lose him.
I mean,
already weak on the right side.
The only thing that I would say is I don't necessarily think Zadorov should be in that position and fighting. Like, yes, you signed him and he's a big body. He's a big guy, but he's not necessarily a fighter.
Right.
Like, he lays big punishing open ice hits and will smush people into the boards. But as we saw against a real NHL tough guy and fighter, he kind of got worked over by a guy who is significantly smaller than him.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you'd like to see Trent Frederick do. I mean, if you're not doing anything else, Trent, why not just jump on the ice and beat a guy and step up and do that? What do you think the problem is with Frederick?
I don't know. Maybe he has the Jim Montgomery syndrome and he's checked out because he knows that he's got a contract in St. Louis this offseason and he just doesn't give a shit anymore. But I don't know. Maybe he needs to go see a sports psychologist or something. Maybe, he needs a slump buster. Who knows? He's just terrible. Like, he's borderline. You probably should send him to the AHL for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, tonight he was obviously a +1, but just about everybody was a plus. 3 hits, no shots, played 18 shifts, 14 and a half minutes, won 2 faceoffs and lost 4 of them. He's not.
No shots is even impressive. Like,
he's not a great center. Like, that's the other thing. Like, they have him at center now. He's not a great center. Like, I'd rather have him on the wing, and it's drop him down to the fourth line. Or scratch him for a game or two. You mentioned John Farinacci the other night. He helped. Was it Lysell had a goal and assist? Or Tufte had 2 goals and assists, and Tufte was on his wing, and Farinacci's been actually pretty good. Hasn't gotten a chance to come up at all.
And Lysell actually played on that line with Tufte and Farinacci.
Yeah, with Farinacci, right. And, as soon as Tufte had that 2-goal, 1-assist performance, I'm like, here we go. Here comes Tufte back in the lineup. Hasn't happened yet, but you wait. Just you wait. All right,
Max Jones and Riley Tufte coming up.
Oh, yeah. Max Jones, is he still with the organization? I haven't heard a peep about him for a couple of weeks. T-Bow. So here are the fan comments. Now, T-Baw's sip of the game. Russell Reserve 10-year. One of my favorite wild turkey siblings. Tonight, I'm going mojito. I have a mojito, lime and mint. Yeah, just standard mojito tonight. Got a swat. What do you do that? They got a, what do you call that?
Mullet?
Mull the mint in there. Do you like shit floating in your drink?
Me? No.
Yeah, are you a shit floating in your drink?
I don't
kind of
drink
guy?
alcohol, period. So
Oh, you don't? Oh, right.
That,
You're a
but
weed guy. That's right.
Yep.
I feel like you're either a weed guy or an alcohol guy. You're not typically both. Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of people throw up when they mix the two.
When they mix the two. Okay. I'll keep that in mind the first time I smoke weed. T-Baw's browser watch.
Get the fuck out of here.
First time. 2024. Browser watch 2024. 7 goals until T-Baw's Sorry John t-shirt for sure. Odyssey is really fired up for my fellow Swede after his call up. This pod has time and time again pointed out that you need one elite skill to break through the NHL. I think number 23 has several: skating, puck handling, and I agree with you. I mean, he does have some elite skills. The whether or not he can put it together in the NHL is another thing. Like, can he handle physicality? Can he work through tough goals? Can he get to areas on the ice that he needs to get to? Can he play defensively? Maybe he's not in the right organization. I mean, they're really staunch on defensive responsibility, 200-foot game, blah, 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 blah. But, and maybe that's a hindrance to him. I don't know. But give him a chance. Like tonight, he didn't blow it. Like to me, why not put him in there again Tuesday? Like, why not do it? I mean, why would you send him down again after tonight?
Well,
he didn't do anything wrong.
I think he's probably going to get sent back down regardless after the game tonight,
as like
just
a money
for cap purposes.
Thing.
Yeah. If he comes back up for the next game, is a completely different story. What I would be curious about is, would they be willing to waive Wahlstrom again?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to do the Wahlstrom thing again. I wasn't a big fan of the thing. I just don't think it's necessary. You're not going to get out of Wahlstrom what everybody thinks that Wahlstrom should be. It's just not going to happen. Like, he's not a productive NHL guy offensively. Like, he had the pedigree, like, growing up. It's just not happening. He's just not that guy. And you're bringing him in, like you made the point last night, which is a good one. Like, you're bringing him into a guy with a team that's offensively challenged, expecting him, who's offensively challenged, to figure it out. Like, that's just not the case. So, what do you expect? I mean, people come in here, and I get it's the new shiny toy, and you're like, oh yeah, we'll friggin' rectify Oliver. We'll resurrect Oliver Wahlstrom. Which, of course, I mean, he's going to come in and score all sorts of goals. No, I mean, handwriting was on the wall. He's just not an offensively productive player. So it's just not working for him in the league. So to me, it's just bring Lysell up before that. Like, I don't know. Don't give Oliver Wahlstrom money to set him down again. Like, I don't know. I didn't love it then.
Yeah, rehabbing players' careers and trying to give them a fresh start only works when your team is good.
Yes. I think that's 100% true. Odysseys makes a good point about coachability with Lysell. That was an issue, it seemed, with Ryan Muginel maybe 2 years ago and last year, but it started to come around. And I think that Lysell has shown that he will be coached. I mean, he's learned how to play defensively. I think he's much better now as a hockey player, an all-around hockey player than he was before. And I think he's getting there. He was probably frustrated at times, and he probably wants to play. I think the
coachability is in question.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But to me, it seems as though he's getting better, which means that he must be listening to something.
We had a soundbite, and there's a clip on YouTube of you and Smitty about Fabian Lysell and is he a bust or something along those lines back in the day, probably early summer or spring of last year. And Ryan Muginel, we had a full audio clip of him in there where he basically said that he's not playing a 200-foot game And while he's here, he needs to start figuring that out. And if he gets to the NHL, then he's somebody else's problem. Which made me feel like
glowingly. Yeah.
that he's frustrated with Lysell in trying to get him to play a 200-foot game. But if God forbid he gets called up to the NHL, then fuck it. That's some other coach's problem to figure out.
Yeah. And look, if you want to play in the NHL, you'll do it. Like, they're not going to trade you. I mean, it's going to take them forever to trade the guy. Let's be honest. So we're going to keep doing this up and down thing until you figure it out. So if you'd like to avoid long bus rides or whatever the fuck, like, if you want to play in the NHL, then do what it needs to be done to play in the NHL. I mean, your way is not going to work with this organization, so you need to figure that thing out. And look at it, it makes you a better hockey player in the end. So stop fighting it. Just try to do the best you can with it. No response on Marchenko's headhunting on the captain. Weak, said Odysseys. This is not a big response team. Hasn't been for a while. It just isn't. And Frederick had a bitch of a time trying to figure that out with Cassidy. Like, when do I do it? When do I not do it? Taking stupid penalties. It's just not. They don't do that thing. And, whether you agree or disagree with that, they don't. They're not going to take penalties, and they're not going to jump guys because they take runs at them. They want to take the power play, which sucks anyway. And they, so I don't know. I don't know why that doesn't happen, but it doesn't typically happen. Incredibly incompetent start to the second period, but Morgan Geekie can shoot. What a shot by Matthew Curtis. And it was. There was a time there where there was about a 45-second shift in their own end. They finally have Kastelik have it, like I just said, just inside his own blue line. He coughs it up, and it's another minute in the zone with them chasing the puck again. So a total of about 1:45 to 2 minutes in their own end in that second period. Swayman made a save or two, and they get away unscathed. But that was the second period. There was a little bit shaky. You're going to get some pushback because the Blue Jackets know they haven't been very good on the road. And I thought the Blue Jackets would play a more spirited effort tonight, just because they know they can beat the Bruins, one, and two, they were talking about it pregame about how they need to be better on the road. And so I thought you'd get a pretty good effort from them. And I think for the most part, they played okay, but the Bruins were fortunate enough to cash in when they had opportunities and got the goals they needed, and they got the goaltending and the defense that they needed. I think they only allowed 18 to 20 shots on net. So it was a pretty good effort all around for Boston, for sure. T-Boz, nice. Pasta looked like Brazo getting down on the ice. He is definitely hurting. Props to the Brass for wasting a great talent. Sad to see. Matthew Curtis, Lysell had a nice tape-to-tape cross-ice pass in the first. I did see that. He definitely has better passing ability than 95% of the team. But they set a very low bar, and that's for sure. I'll tell you, I don't know what other teams are doing as far as passing, but it just seems like the Bruins have a real hard time passing sometimes. I don't remember it. It stands out to me, so I feel like I don't remember it being this bad. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things you don't notice until it's bad.
Yeah, and like last night, one of the ones that was pretty egregious to me that I noticed was David Pastrnak passed to Morgan Geekie on a 2-on-1 and put it squarely behind him. Like he had to stop in place and reach back to get the puck.
Get it. Yes. And there's been a bunch of those where you're not hitting a guy in stride. And Brickley has talked about it on the broadcast. Like, there's a way to play fast, and that way is to get a tape-to-tape pass with the guy in stride. That's the way you play faster when you aren't that fast. And they play slower because of their passing and their playmaking non-ability. So that makes them look even slower at times. B says, Matty, you saving up those pennies? Looks like you're going to be giving T-Boz a new shirt here and 7 more goals. And B, I'll be taking a loan from you to get that shirt for T-Boz. If Brazo gets to 30, it might be two T-shirts. Might be T-Boz and a lucky winner. Jesus, Zadorov stepped up. Refs, no whistles for these hits. Marchenko better not be off the hook. Zadorov needs to juice him. And like you talked about, Zadorov not really a fighter, more of a big hitter. But he did stand up. He did step up, and he did try to, answer the bell on that hit by Marchenko. So, what can you do? You have to, somebody has to do something in that instance to not allow that to happen, especially on home ice. Odysseys, that also says a lot about Kastelik. First period performance against him almost neutralized Olivier with raw power in the clinch, but technique got the upper hand at last. Gutsy Kastelik, he's willing to fight. He's kind of a tough, nasty hombre. I don't think he's been great hockey wise lately, but he will do that, and he does. I've said it before, and Smitty said it before. He does Frederick's job better than Frederick does. Dan Maynard, I missed the whole game and can't tune in for the post game. I'll have a listen later, but things look good. Thanks, Dan, for checking in as always. Adrian just tuned in. So many house guests this week. Jesus says they're still there, Adrian. Oh my God. Sipping a margarita.
The holidays are almost over.
Oh, Jesus, I hope so. Liking this 4-0 situation with 5 minutes to go. I appreciate all the comments from y'all during the game, helping me catch up. Best of luck with the house guests as New Year's Day approaches. Aussie Bruins. ESPN having technical issues with the stream and dropped out halfway through the third. Couldn't have happened last game. That's very true. You'd rather miss the last 10 minutes of the last game for sure. B also says, I'm just here for the drink recommendations to make sure Matty says his drink ingredients correctly. My sip tonight is a strawberry basil mojito, pretending it's summer up here. Sounds delicious. Strawberry basil mojito. Yikes, that sounds really good. Let's see. The PK was much better tonight, Aussie. It's a good point. Like last night was terrible. I gave up 3 power play goals. The penalty kill is down to 75%, down to 25th in the league. And that's usually a staple of Bruins the last few years, is a good penalty kill. And I think that's a major story. Like we talk about the power play, and it is what it is. It is bad, but the penalty kill should be much better.
It should be. I mean,
shouldn't it be?
Your special teams is kind of the backbone of play. And if you're completely ass in special teams, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, they're 25 and 31. I mean, they're bad in both. That's not a recipe.
When Sweeney tapped Sacco and said that, he's seen a lot of success here. Well, a lot of the success here was based around really good special teams play, specifically on the defensive side of the puck. And one thing that I was looking at here while you're going through some of these comments and trying to verify, and I haven't been able to completely put my thumb on it. However, it is pretty fucking close that Fabian Lysell may not have taken very many shifts in the third, if at all. He had 11:32 time on ice in the entire game.
Help me to understand. I just don't understand it. Like, what did he do so egregiously wrong to not get any? You're up 3-0 at whatever, 3-0, about to be 4-0. Like, why is the guy not taking a regular shift?
The only players who played less than him were Mark Kastelik at 9 minutes and a second.
Skunk. Yeah.
Yep. But also had 9 penalty minutes. So
yeah. That's another problem. Sure.
And then Mark McLaughlin, who's another gaping hole in this lineup at 9 minutes and 53 seconds. So
yeah,
he was also riding a lot of pine.
I mean, I don't understand it. Like, how do you expect? I just don't understand it. I don't. What did Lysell do that was so wrong that he doesn't take a regular shift in the third? Like, I don't get it. Somebody help me.
Frederick played 14:32.
Yeah, he's doing nothing. He's done nothing for 6 weeks. Like, why doesn't he play 8 minutes? Play Lysell 14. Like, I don't understand. It's just it's so aggravating. It really is. Like, it's almost like what do you have against your own players you drafted? Like, what do you have against them? You drafted them. you moron. Like, why? What are you doing? Like, you're alienating your own people. Like, why?
And you're ruining your own assets. Like,
you have Fabian Lysell is like the only thing you have left in the prospect pool right now. Like, the only thing. Like, you need that guy in some fashion. You need that guy to be at least a 20 goal scorer or something. Like, you need him to be something, a middle six guy. Like, you need him to be something. And you just act like you don't need it. Like, it's just like, well, take him or leave him. I don't understand it. Like, it's so asinine. It really is. I just don't get it.
frustrating.
T-Boss says, Connor, don't let this win bamboozle you. Sweeney is going to sit on his thumb and spin. He is the GM version of a dumpster fire. Solid point. I don't, look, I just don't think he can build a core. He relied on that last core they had and made some real savvy, good moves to add to it. I'll grant him that. But other than that, like, he sucked the life out of that core. And now that the core is changing over, doesn't look good. Doesn't look like he can build it.
No, he can retain players.
Sure.
But he cannot replace players.
No.
And that's been a glaring issue. We talked about it last night when talking about the penalty kill. He hasn't been able to replace any of the depth players that are role players for the team. And he hasn't been able to replace any of the star players either. The Chara gap in your defense core was never replaced. The Krejci was never replaced. The Bergeron was never replaced. The Taylor Hall, the Nick Foligno, on and on and on and on. There's been huge gaps in the lineup that he's not been able to properly replace.
Right. I mean, I think you make a good point. Like, the fourth liners you got this offseason, like, none of them are great penalty killers. Like,
two of them are already in the AHL.
Right. Two of them are in the AHL, not even in the NHL. Never mind penalty killing. But that's the problem. Like, can he put a roster together that makes sense? I guess that's my point. And I don't think he can. Like, this roster is not, first of all, it's not a roster that their previous coach could use in his system. So they're trying to change their team makeup, but their coaches a certain way. So that didn't work. And then do the pieces fit? Like, do you have the identity? Do the pieces fit? Did you actually go out and say, okay, we need a penalty killer? Like, we need like a Curtis Lazar, who was a decent penalty killer, like that type of thing. Like, are you identifying, okay, yeah, we're going to get some fourth liners, but one of them has to be a pretty good friggin' penalty killer, or our penalty kill is going to suck. I mean, do they even consider that?
I would assume that they do when making up the construction of their team, but I'm not a fly on the wall, so I guess I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume they would. I mean, Jesus, you have all sorts of.
They did it for the Four Nations tournament.
Yeah, they did. I mean, he put a lot of effort into the Four Nations tournament. Yeah. All right, Odysseys. Geeky Zacha Pasta, Marshy Lindholm Lysell, Merck Coyle Brazeau, Kepke Kastelik McLaughlin, Beecher Wallstrom Bye Trent. Nobody would notice. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I like Coyle back at C3. I like that. 3C. I like that. I like Merkulov in the lineup. I like Lysell in the second line right wing. I could get behind that. I would probably replace McLaughlin with Beecher or somebody else. But I like that. I may even put Frederick in there with Kepke and Kastelik, to be honest with you. But I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Trav, Sway, and Corpy both have 2 shutouts on the season. Well, Sway needed this kind of game. Like, he has been not great. He's been statistically one of the worst goaltenders of all the starting goaltenders in the league. So this is definitely a shutout that he could use, hopefully for his own confidence. Maybe he had a little bit of humble pie. Maybe he just lost some of his confidence that he exhibited so much that people thought he had this swag and this confidence and cockiness even. And maybe he lost some of that. and maybe it was a good reality check for him. We'll see if he can piggyback it. I would expect to see Sway Tuesday. What do you think?
Sure. Why not?
I would expect it. I'm not saying I would, but I would expect it because he's 8.25, and you got to get him to a point where he's your number one guy because he's the third highest paid player on the fucking team. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you've also got to have him playing against good competition and winning. Because right now, yes, he had a 4-0 shutout against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Woohoo.
Yeah.
Show me that against a team that's actually in the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
And then I would be a little bit more excited. But if you're the Bruins and you can only beat the bottom tier teams in this league, and then you get absolutely smothered by the real playoff teams, what are we really doing here?
Sure.
You're just teasing us.
I think that's a valid point. Trav says that rehabbing Zacha's career was a positive.
Yeah, he was bringing up when I was talking about you can't bring a player in here on a struggling team and rehab their career.
Right.
But the thing is, that was not a struggling team. Everybody basically had career years. So
that was and he wasn't a focal point. Like they had players who could pick up the slack, and he could just be him. Right now, he has 9 goals, 8 assists, 17 points in 37 games, +3. He's been good at times and kind of blah and okay at other times. I mean, he's still, to me, he's still Pavel Zacha. You know what I mean? He's still,
this season is more on par with what he was in New Jersey.
Yes.
Than the first 2 years of the bump that he got with the Bruins, where he was a 60-point player. That's not who he is.
That's not who he is. Somewhere
he is a 35 to 40-point player in this league.
He had 32, 35, 36 his last 3 seasons with the Devils. He had 57 and 59 with Boston, but on good teams with a really solid roster. And now he's got 17 in 37 games. So almost at the halfway point, he's tracking for about 37 points again, which is what he was in New Jersey. So this is who he is. So I don't know. That's a good point.
His career wasn't really rehabbed.
Yeah. Is he resurrected? Is he rehabbed? I don't know. I mean, I think he's still Pavel Zacha, to be honest with you. And I think people think that he's the 57, 59 point guy when honestly, if I had someone come to me at the trade deadline and said that they really were enamored with Pavel Zacha, I'd say, what do you want for him? Like, what are you going to give for him? Because I'd send him. I mean, he's a mid-30s to 40-point guy. Like, is that a top 6 center? No.
He is another third-line center.
Yes.
That is needing to play second-line center minutes.
Yes.
And this is Charlie Coyle Part 2.
Yes.
From 4 years ago.
Sure. That's what it is. He's a fairly responsible two-way center who isn't wicked flashy, is only 40 points. Like, that's who they have in Lindholm, Zacha, Coyle. Like, they have essentially the same guy in different body parts.
Yep. When Don Sweeney goes into his free agent meetings, he sits down and he looks at his book of all the potential centers and he says, so you had 60 points last season? Sorry. Next.
Yeah.
You had 50 points last season at center. Sorry, too much. Next. Ooh, you had 35 points. Tell me more.
Yeah, 35 points, and you can back check. Oh my God, I have a Woodrow right now. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm all set. Matthew Curtis, bringing Lysell up for only one game would be bonkers and really shitty for the player and very on point. And it is. They've done it over and over again, Matthew. I don't get it. And it's completely pissing me off right now. Like, I'm to the point where I'm pissed off about it. And if I was a young player, I'd be pissed off about it too. What would you like me to do to get shifts in the third period, coach? And it's not just Cassidy. It's not just Montgomery. Now it's Sacco, which tells me what's the common denominator? It's Don fucking Sweeney, who has some chart somewhere that says if they're not doing XYZ, then don't give him any more shifts. And it's an organizational thing. It's not about the coach. 3 coaches wouldn't do the same fucking thing.
Hasn't Sacco been here longer than any of them?
Yeah, 11
Except for
years.
Neely.
11 years. That's why it's so incestuous right now that it's just not. Sacco cannot be the guy going forward. I know they're 12-5-1. I don't give a shit. He should not be the guy going forward. They need a head coach from outside. I think it was you who made the valid point. When was the one time they won the Stanley Cup? When they got the GM from outside the organization and the coach. Claude Julien was a Canadiens guy.
Yep.
That combination won the cup. When it's in the organization, they don't win the cup.
Nope.
So they need to go outside the organization again. Tom Rotman. Thanks for checking in, Tom. Lysell and McLaughlin should definitely have had more third period shifts, at least to give 88 some rest. It's another valid point, Tom, is that Pastrnak plays a lot of minutes for a forward, especially with a guy who's, he's not super big, and he needs to, he needs his legs, and he needs to be able to skate and to be effective to score goals. To play him such heavy minutes is really asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's asking for trouble. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to wear the guy out by the end of the season. I think he's already worn out.
Yeah, I mean, he's hurt, so
right.
Hurt and worn out is a deadly combination.
Yes, it sure is.
Like we said yesterday, there's not going to be any time to rest David Pastrnak for entire games.
There isn't. You're going to have to win all the way throughout.
So
yeah, unless there's an epic collapse by the Ottawa Senators, you're going to have to win all the way throughout because it's going to be a dogfight to the end, I think, with them.
Mm-hmm.
John Brown, does Sway have his mojo back? I think Connor makes a good point. If it's not the Columbus Blue Jackets, 4-0 at home, I think if it's another team, if he goes into Washington Tuesday and does this, then I might be behind that, John.
Yep,
I might be behind that. But right now, it's Columbus, a bad 4-12-3. I think it is road team, like not a good road team, even though they pounded your ass twice. Previously, still not a great team at all.
Nope.
T-Buzz, why are we blaming the players for Sweeney's shortcomings? Zacha and Coyle aren't asking to play up, but we're not blaming the players at all. It is definitely a Sweeney problem. It's a roster construction problem. But let's not act like Zacha's a 59 and 57 point guy. Let's not act like Coyle's a 60 point guy when he gets it for the first time at 32 years old or whatever it is. Like, let's not act like we're going to get that from them.
Both things can be true at once.
Yes, both teams are 100%
because let
true.
me clue you into a little something. Neither of those players are playing the same position that they are now when they were producing all of those points.
Mm-hmm.
And they had other players around them.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are the same player and they are just lesser.
How much do you think? To me, I really think we're underselling how effective Taylor Hall was with Coyle and Frederick.
They both
had career years.
He created space.
Yeah, because he has elite skating. He's a number one overall pick. Like, he has elite skill in skating, and he created problems. You had to know where Hall was. I mean, he took defenders with him and all that stuff. And Coyle and Frederick had career years playing with Taylor Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And you lost him, and now they're playing with Justin Brazeau.
Yeah, I mean, there's players in this league who drive the line, and there's players who are the fringe and they get carried along, or they're role players, right? So Charlie Coyle is not ever going to drive play on a line. He is not going to be the person that makes Fabian Lysell a better player. He's not. Pavel Zacha, I don't think he's going to make anybody else a better player. I think Pavel Zacha gets made better by playing with David Pastrnak or by being on the wing when he was playing with Pastrnak and Krejci. He was getting the benefit of the doubt of two better players being near him and creating space because nobody was worried about him.
Right. That's right. And that's where you get that. That's why who was it? Rob Brown scores 44 goals or whatever with Mario Lemieux. That's why Kevin Stevens was heading for a Hall of Fame career before cocaine and not playing with Mario Lemieux derailed his career. Like, that's why, guys have these career years. Like, who the hell was it? Zach Hyman, who scores a shit ton of goals playing with Connor McDavid, or guys who Pat Maroon had an unbelievable season, I think, with one of those guys, McDavid or Draisaitl or somebody.
It was McDavid, yeah.
McDavid scored like 1,000,000 goals. Pat Maroon, he could barely move.
Yeah.
Like, so give me a break. Like, that's kind of the deal. You play with better players who take all the attention away. Sure, you'll score some goals.
And that's my argument with Fabian Lysell. Like, why stick him with Frederick and Brazeau when you could have put him in a much better position with better players that would make space for him to be able to play the game that he plays? Because, newsflash, but he's not going to have the same time and space on the ice when he's the offensive person on the line, which is exactly what he was when you play him with Trent Frederick and Justin Brazeau. He is the fastest, most offensive player on that line. So when you're on the ice and you're the defensive player, who do I worry about and focus on? Oh,
yes,
the rookie who's trying to figure it out.
Sure.
That's easy.
Oh, I'll tell you, this is why I would 100%, and I know people are going to rip me about this. If you're not going to do anything else, I would go get Taylor Hall again. I would get Taylor Hall for whatever this is. This is last year or what? I don't even give a shit.
Yeah, he's got 1 year left on his contract.
If you take some of that money and you able to get Taylor Hall at whatever price, like a even more discounted price, I would take Taylor Hall right now. And I would put him on a line with somebody. If you're not going to do anything else, I'd rather have him on the third line back with Coyle and somebody. Savoie Cross says Hall, Patra, Lysell. Sure, bring Hall in and play him with Patra. Like, bring Patra up and play him with Taylor Hall. Like, you might have something there, at least for one glimmering moment. Like, it's better than what you have, what you're rolling out there. Even Taylor Hall right now, it is just this point in his career. Like, and he liked it here. And he was actually a pretty good player for them.
He was.
Like, he did pretty well for them.
And
so
he demanded to be here.
And he did, yeah. So I'm telling you, I would, if you're not going to do anything else and you're going to get some, fourth line schlep and some defensive whatever, I would take Taylor Hall back, because at least you get a guy with a pedigree and a guy who can play with younger players, help him out. He's got a skill set still. He still has some speed. He still has those big legs and that big strides and that, that elite skating skill that you play him with a Patra or a Lysell, create some space for them. I'd love to see that. Give it a shot. Who gives a shit? Like, why not? Give it a shot.
Yeah, he's got a big ticket. I think he's still on that $6 million deal that Boston signed him to. So that would probably be the major sticking point.
Yeah, 100%. That was I'll tell you what, that was a really big time snipe tonight. Actually, both of them, Kiki and Koepke. Koepke was, he hasn't been doing much lately, but he's shown a ability to shoot the puck too. Not a bad pickup, but again, was it worth it? I don't know. Someone said Frederick doesn't grow because they have him playing everywhere instead of in one spot. Frederick just isn't as good as people think he is. Like, Frederick is not the player that people think he is. He had a really, again, with Taylor Hall, Trent Frederick gets all types of, I would love to go. I'm going to go back and watch all the goals he scored with Taylor Hall and see what was happening when he scored those goals. Because I'm telling you that Taylor Hall took some of the focus away and he was able to have some space.
And I think one of the things that's really hurting Trent Frederick overall in his expectations and persona in Boston is he was a first round pick that wasn't really a first round pick.
Right.
And he was always projected to be a third liner.
He was. Yeah.
So if he's a third line player that puts up 20 to 30 points, that's
Yeah.
exactly what they expect him to be. But I think the aspirations of Frederick is probably confused with reality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So B said, "What am I doing with my wrist? Am I doing something with my wrist? That's like, believe me, I'm doing nothing with my wrist right now.
I don't
I'm
know.
actually probably going to throw up a middle finger to the Bruins if they keep doing their rookies wrong. Like that Lysell thing is really going to piss me off. He's probably going to go back down tomorrow.
And do
for
you
a
want to hear the
transaction.
good feel-good story about Lysell today?
Yeah.
His parents were in for the holiday, and they were set to leave tomorrow to go back home, and he got the call this morning that he was getting called up to play in the game tonight. So
You think
all
they did
able
him a
to attend.
solid?
I don't know. I mean, the other flip side of the coin here is, what are the odds that they called him up because he's being talked about in some trades?
Do you think they trade Lysell? Well, I mean, if the things you say are accurate about his coachability and his sort of attitude, and Mujanel not being a huge fan of him, maybe they're getting to the end of their line with him. Maybe if they think they can get a guy with some term who's an established player, maybe that's what they do. I'd love to see what that trade is. I mean, would you trade like him for like a Brock Nelson?
No.
No,
It's got to be
he's 34
It's
years
got to
old.
be somebody who's, younger, that you're kind of building a package around, like,
Right.
someone
Change the scenery guy.
24 or younger who's got points but just not happy with that specific team.
Right.
And you build a package of like Lysell, a first round pick, and something else.
Maybe like Kent
for that
Johnson.
player.
We saw it tonight with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
Someone like him.
Something
He's
like
had
that.
some ups and downs and was sent down, and then he got hot. And he's a first rounder, legitimate first round pick. 23 years old, I think. Like, he's still young.
Like, I'm
Maybe
looking
something like
at
that.
the Capo-Caco trade, right? Like, so
Right,
it's a little
yeah.
lopsided because of what they wanted in the deal, but a player like that, that that's a decent player, a solid player with a lot of talent
Mhm.
that you can make a deal for and put him in a position to succeed.
Right. Well, that's the $1 million statement. Put him in a position to succeed.
If they get a top 6 player, they have the right players in their lineup to put that player with.
Yes.
That's what they're searching for. And if they can
Yes.
find that one person to round out that top 6, I think everything slots properly in the rest of the lineup.
I think you're right. So that's either a second line right wing or a top line left wing or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, it's a
It's one of
first
the
or a
things.
second line wing, but you can't keep going after these third and fourth line wingers.
No, and expecting them to play up.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Then
it becomes quantity over quality, which is not what you want.
Yeah.
Not what you want at all in this case, anyway. Matthew Curtis says he would create a Patra, Lysell, Pastrnak line yesterday if Lysell can play left wing. I think Patra looked great, his handful of shifts with Pasta, and I think Lysell can open. I think what they would love to have happen is for Patra to play with Pastrnak. It's in some way, shape, or form next season. Like, give him a center who has some playmaking and some vision and some IQ. I think that would be a dream for them to do, because I don't see any other alternative. And if this season ends the way we think it will with Pastrnak, with his numbers really dipping severely, I think they really make a concerted effort to have Patra and Pastrnak be top line next year.
See, I would love to see them be the second line. I would love to see a first line of Lindholm, Marchand, insert, maybe Coyle. He played well with that line. And then have the second line of the Patra, the Lysell, and the Pastrnak, and just let that ride. I think that is a line that if the Bruins, work their cards right, that could be a line for 4 to 6 years solid right there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know defensively what that line looks like. And I hate to be that guy because it is aggravating with the whole 200-foot thing. But
Patra is a 200-foot center, and
he is a 200-foot center.
he built his game around players like Patrice Bergeron. So
yeah. So maybe Lysell, Pastrnak, and okay. I mean, if Lysell can play,
can
let Wayne.
Patra be the defensive dynamo on that line and pull other players into playing defensively like Bergeron did to Marchand and Pastrnak in their younger years?
Well, DeBrusque was not a great defensive player until he learned to, from Krejci and Bergeron. Krejci wasn't a great defensive player until he learned. So from a guy like Bergeron. So that's very true. That's very true. It's a good point. And Matthew says he thinks we are dead on with the take about Lysell being packaged. That would be much more on point for Sweeney instead of seeing what the can be in your team. If they trade the guy without ever really getting a taste of what he would be like in the NHL, I think that's kind of ass hat management. I mean, I think that's just
management.
That's ass hat management. That is just not. That just doesn't make any sense at all to me. At all.
I agree. But if you think about it from the Bruins' point of view, they're in win now mode. So they've never cared about how these younger players are going to be because they've never factored into the future of the organization. So here's the question. Do you think that Don Sweeney has different expectations of the future between Patra and Lysell? Like, do you think he has one of them in the future plans and one of them not?
I think he has Patra in the future plans because I don't think they'd be sending him down to develop him. I think he'd be still in the NHL if they were looking to move him at the deadline. I don't think it makes any sense for them to move him down to the AHL and have him get development time to just trade him. I think that Lysell would be the guy over Patra that they would like to move. I think that they would love to move on from Merkulov. I don't think you get anything for him. He's an undrafted free agent. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get him to play him on their AHL team and maybe spot him in the NHL, but that's not a lot of value. That's not going to get you a lot of return.
No.
So it's basically, I think it would be Lysell because they like Patra. I mean, Patra is it's more of what they like. He seems to be a good kid. He seems to be willing to play 200 foot. He has good IQ. He's played in the league a little bit, and he's produced a little bit. Lysell has been a pain in the ass. He's not done what they want him to do. They keep bitching about him. So obviously, it would be Lysell who they'd be looking to move.
Yeah, in
my opinion.
One of the things that's really odd to me is most teams, when they're trying to trade players, you hear the general manager or the coach coming up and they're really pumping the tires and talking about all the good things about the player, even though you and I know that it's been awful for that player. They focus on all of the good things. They put him in all the positions on the ice to play well, and they talk him up to pump up the value, make them feel good and sound good around the league, and ship them off. The Bruins seem to do the complete opposite. They never seem to talk up the players before they trade them. They just beat down all of their assets.
Yeah, and then they send
just
them off for nothing. Yeah, Jack Studnicka and these guys, by the time they trade them, they have no value.
Well, Jack Studnicka might be
you got Michael DiPietro, who's been dynamite this year. I mean, he's really developing into who could be an NHL type of goaltender, like probably backup, but a guy who might be able to play in the NHL. I mean, his numbers right now are really good down the farm. And last year, I mean, he's leaped over Bussy as far as being a better prospect, I guess if you can call him that. At 27 years old.
He's 11-4-2 with a 1.99 goals against and a 9.26 save percentage so far this season.
That's legit. I mean, that's legit.
That is killer stats.
Yeah, that is. So I'll tell you what. ship Joonas, Korpisalo, if he has another couple of good starts, and put DiPietro in there. I mean, there's no need to have Swayman and Korpisalo if DiPietro is going to be a guy who's making shorter money that you can have.
One of the things that I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about roster construction and, all that jazz is thinking to myself, man, we are just spending like 3 to 4 million too much in our goaltending department between the two goaltenders. And if you were able to ship Korpisalo out and bring up DiPietro as your backup, you would free up enough money to go after, somebody in that Taylor Hall ilk of player with the cap space that you would have available. And, in Don Sweeney's pocket, that's probably what screwed him this year on his roster, is he's spent way too much on his goaltending by getting stuck with Korpisalo in that deal. And he wasn't able to go out and address that, first or second line wing. And that's why it's incomplete.
Yeah, I just think if he hung on to the money a little while longer and kept the cap space, then he may have had a better chance to get pieces that actually fit. I think he spent the money kind of carelessly because he had it, and he thought he had the guys in Lindholm and Zadorov and these guys, and spent the money to do that, and didn't get and traded Ullmark and ended up not saving a ton of money from it. That was the other thing. And then you end up with no money, and then the guys don't really pan out like you thought. And then here you are, like with no way out. So kind of backed himself into a corner there, I thought.
Yeah, in my mind, that was kind of a, looking back at it, that was a disaster of a trade. It was a complete disaster. And I don't even think Dean Letourneau, even 5 years from now, is going to be anything worth what that caused this year.
Nope. I mean, right now, Letourneau, I think, has played 9 games. He has, I think, 2 points. He's been scratched a few times with BC. It's a long project with him. Now, they're on a team that's, has some real talent on it, for sure.
Yeah, it's
like
an all-star team.
Like, next year is going to be the year for him. He's going to have to make a real leap and take on a top 6 role with them regularly, because guys like maybe Jelvik might be gone, Gasso might be gone, of course Leonard will be gone. I mean, there's some guys on that team. Hagens will be gone. So there's 4 really good players probably off that team next year. Letourneau's going to have to slot right in there and really start developing next season. It's something to keep an eye on, because if he doesn't, then you could be talking about just another swing and miss in the first round when you really desperately needed to hit on that one.
And bending over backwards to get draft picks to blow them is
unreal. Is unreal. I mean, again, it's about, who you're drafting, why you're drafting them, what type of identity you're drafting into. All of those things have to be revisited, in my opinion. And it's revisited by new management. It's revisited by a whole new outlook, a whole new philosophy, identity. All of it needs to be different. And I think that it's going to rear its ugly head pretty soon. They're treading water right now. I mean, they're hanging in there, but at some point the rubber's going to meet the road, and they're not going to have any prospects. They're not going to have a ton of money to spend. Players aren't going to want to come here. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
And your core guys now are going to start aging. And then, Pastrnak's going to get old quick. He's been in the league quite a bit now, even though he's still relatively young. He played a lot of hockey. So, then those guys start to get older. You miss their window, and now they're past their prime. And, it's going to be, this is a really important off season to next season. It's really important for them to make the right moves. And I'm not sure what that's going to be. It's going to be an interesting summer. Of course, it's all dependent on how they do at the end of the season here. All right, that does it for another Bruins Benders postgame live. Hey, appreciate all the comments again. Great night again. Back at it New Year's Eve. Washington Capitals in Washington, a rematch of the game before the holiday break. Until then, as always,
see you later.